Before tens of thousands run the 26.2 miles from Hopkinton to Copley Square in the 128th Boston Marathon on Monday, another group of runners will set off on Saturday for 26 Point True. It's an alternative marathon that aims to celebrate and amplify the city's diverse communities, with a course that passes through more than a dozen Boston neighborhoods. I'm joined now by Mike Remy, an assistant run coach with Ready, Set, Marathon, and a member of the Pioneers Run Crew, the group behind 26 Point True. Thanks so much for joining me.
Absolute pleasure.
So tell me about 26 Point True. It's a very different course than the Boston Marathon, and that's a big part of the point, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The biggest thing is that it's actually in Boston, and I think for folks who are not from here, they wouldn't know that. The Boston Marathon, you spend maybe 3 miles in Boston versus 26 Point True, where we will be running the neighborhoods of Boston, Hyde Park, Jamaica Plain, South Boston, and actually experiencing our city.
I know part of your goal is making running more welcoming to communities of color, right? What is unwelcoming about the Boston Marathon?
The biggest thing is that it's not as inclusive as one would think. You start running, you're having a good time, and then you hear about this race, like, oh, okay, maybe I want to run the Boston Marathon. And then the more you find out, the more it becomes that like, oh, hold on. I either A, need to be mega fast. And if you are, awesome. There's still a cutoff time and buffers and this and that. So it's not as easy to get in as, hey, I'd like to run this. Let me register. There are charity bibs, but even that's super competitive. And we don't all have extensive networks that can help you fundraise the $7,000–8,000 necessary on top of training and doing all those things. So it just felt like there was enough space to have an alternate option for the people who wanted to run and see the city and couldn't. You grow up in Boston and you'd never get a chance to run the Boston Marathon. Mm-hmm. You can still run through Boston.
You and I last spoke after last year's Boston Marathon, where there was an incident at mile 21 where members of the Pioneers Run Crew and Trailblazers were cheering for fans, and the Newton police responded because there was a complaint that members of your run crews were running along the marathon route. The president of the BAA apologized to the run crews after that, but has since also apologized to Newton Police more recently for how that incident was handled. I actually had a chance to speak to him just recently about this incident, and here's what he said.
We want the run crews, we want Pioneers and Trailblazers to be there in 2024 like they were there and have been there in past years. I have to ask that they cheer, everyone cheer, from the sidelines, as we ask everyone and anyone in each of the 8 cities and towns to do the same.
What do you think now about that incident and how it was handled, and will you be going to the Boston Marathon this year?
Well, I'll answer the second question. No, I will not. And there's a lot there. But I do appreciate that they can at least recognize that my biggest gripe was the inconsistency. So owning that you were not clear and it was not consistent, because I've been at different cheer zones in past years when I was not a runner, and hanging around BC, folks are drinking and unruly, and this is not the first time, people were on the course of a race, but that was the only time that I saw that kind of response, that I saw that kind of enforcement of people coming out or jumping in and celebrating with their friend that they've been waiting hours to see run, if it's their first marathon. We were out in Chicago, and very similar environment where we were celebrating, and it was all fair game. Nobody was impeding the runners, but celebrating with them. And, there was there was one police detail that was there and worked very well with us to manage things and clearly communicate and gave us the tools to stay in lines, but that's not what happened on that day.
Okay. Let's talk, if we can, in the moment we have left, about the 26-point true. How does this work? I mean, it's an unsanctioned race in that the roads are not closed down. How many runners are we talking about, and how do you actually run a marathon unsanctioned like that?
Yeah, so one of my early experiences with getting ready for my first marathon, there are all these training runs. We took a bus up to Framingham and ran into Back Bay. And so, no, you have to be careful about your road crossings. You're using the sidewalks, but, you've got safety in numbers. Just like as a cyclist, you would stay to the fringes and, watch out, pick your spots. That's how that's going to work. There are about 200, 250 runners. Some have traveled from far and wide to come on down. Super excited to see everybody on Saturday morning. But, it's really a less competitive race. So you can come out, run as you are. If you want to light it up and run your best race, great. If it's your very first time and you just want to see if you can do it, also great. So there's space for that, and it doesn't necessarily have to be, everybody pin their ears back and let's see what you got. I, in the future, would love to see the event grow so that we could have a couple of major street crossings, be a little bit safer, a little bit more protected. But I'm just thrilled that there is another option and an opportunity to celebrate my city with others.
Great. Well, I know you're planning on running it, so good luck on Saturday. And Mike Remy, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.